I left behind. Not a minute wasted on the truth.
So many reasons to stay. It's taking.
Hello again, CarmenRider here, back with another commentary. Well, this fight isn't over, and I doubt it will be over anytime soon. Today we're following up on Luke's end of the deal to talk about the creator he mentioned, Vabzusin. Now initially I was just going to talk about just the robot and that's it. But then I realized that this is one of the YouTubers mentioned in the CBN segment in that video I did on Nani. If you haven't watched my old video on Nani, then go watch that first. And afterwards, go watch the video I did on Prismate Luke, since both those videos are important for the context of this one. Yeah, they're a bit long compared to my other videos, but it's important to get all the context in order to be on the same page. You can go ahead and watch them now. You back? Good, now we're ready to start. First, we're gonna do the video on Lupus Vulps, since that came out first. Let's get into it. Well, at least you actually tried to make people not attack her.
So if there was ever a situation I was expecting to talk about, it is not one in which an artist that I've been following for 5.5 years is outed as a transphobe and then decides to take everyone to church as a way of trying to clear her name of the situation. Yeah, I wanted to make a video talking about how the internet has completely failed at discussing and handling someone's age in a given situation, but it's 2020 and nothing is sacred.
Really? Because after this video, you didn't do that at all from the looks of it. Then again, I haven't seen your latest video, so maybe you're right.
This isn't even a video I would normally make given normal circumstances, at least to this degree of isolation, especially since my last video was literally about non-binary characters, and also because, funnily enough, or not because the discussion topic sucks, my next video was going to at least minorly discuss trans issues, and the other video that was going to come afterwards was going to discuss it alongside LGBT struggles in media in general in a far more in-depth manner.
Still waiting on that video.
So I guess get used to it, as I will still be discussing those issues when I get to them in those videos. The person in question here has just bestowed upon me an opportunity to give the topic its own video. So thanks for that, but also kill me, because I'ma be real, when I decided that I was going to make a video discussing this predicament, I had absolutely no idea how I was going to go about doing that, because even despite the subject in question herself making a video that I could respond to, which would work for me, because then I could make the commentary response style video that I previously partook in a lot on this channel, I wasn't even sure I could go about that route here, and I'll be sure to make a special note of why when we get to it.
Why not just do both? This video is already 23 minutes long, so adding on a few extra minutes won't be an issue. Longer videos equals more ad revenue and watch time.
So, now that the extremely long and arbitrary pre-intro is done, what and who the hell am I even talking about? This is Lupus Vulps, or Vulpes? I don't know, Squeebs. I'd rather be calling her bitch, but I want my monetization. Oh yeah, her name is also Emily from what I've gathered, so if you see that, it's her. Although I will be referring to her as Lupus throughout this entire video because it's easier and what she's most well known as. If you've been in the art community, specifically the animation meme or multi-animated project circles, at all within the past, half-decade, I'm sure you've at least seen some of her work. She's an artist and animator who is pretty well known for the cancelled series The Audience that she tried to make a thing for a while back in the 2014-2015 era. And it was popular. Her clearly noticeable movement in her animation and the idea of being able to create a story that brought the talents of multiple artists together was exciting, despite the fact that literally only the pilot ever came to fruition. And also, as I write this script, I'm noticing something hilariously ironic that I will be bringing up when I get into the sins of Lupus. So recently, as a particular offense on Lupus' end has come to light and gained a fair bit of traction, so have past actions of hers.
And on this channel, we dig shit up from the past and use it against people, because fuck normal human behavior. Now I know what you're gonna say. But CarmenRider, you brought up that old video of Creepshow Art and did a commentary about it despite her apologizing. Firstly, Hopeless Peaches says hi. Secondly, Creepshow Art didn't do anything to fix her mistake. like unlisting the video or deleting it, or even just leaving a pinned comment or editing the description or title. Lupus, while she did handle it poorly, tried to make amends. And lastly, show me where Creepshow Art apologized. I have received several comments saying that Creepshow Art apologized, yet nowhere do I see it. If someone could link it to me in the comments or on my Discord server, that would be great.
Ranging from hilariously stupid to actually pretty egregious. There's a Google Doc compiling basically everything she's done with varying degrees of evidence. So just a fair warning, I will not be going over everything listed in the doc, as some of which I do not feel comfortable trying to handle in a video.
How convenient. Nani said the same thing. I wonder why everyone against Lupus isn't fully going into the doc. Maybe because the evidence debunks their arguments? Maybe.
And just to be completely transparent, one of the sections goes over testimony of alleged abuse on Lupus and to her previous partners. I will not be going over this, and if you choose to read through, although it is mentioned in the Google Doc, trigger warning for talks of suicide, self-harm, and depression.
Oh, trust me, we've all gone through it together.
Now, moving on to what we will actually be discussing. So let me talk about the main catalyst for this situation. On August 19th, a user by the name of Mio came forward on Twitter revealing his experience as a customer for Lupus. In the screenshots, Lupus refuses to draw the character with a trans flag and regards transgenderism and the mere presence of the trans flag as something that pertains to sexual things and causes. Keep in mind, this was during Pride Month.
Yeah, and Lupus made Pride adopts at one point. She's clearly not transphobic if she's willing to do that. And she said it was because she didn't want to be political. Why is it okay for you to acknowledge and respect the viewer's triggers but not respect Lupus's? Just asking.
The 1 month of the year dedicated to LGBT folk celebrating themselves and the progress they have made in terms of acceptance and equality. Lupus was actually contacted by another friend about the sexual comment, to which she actually fesses up to maybe being wrong on that front.
If she admitted to her being in the wrong, then why bring this up? I mean, I don't see her as in the wrong, but you're clearly putting her in a you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't situation.
Which appears to be a first amongst this entire situation. But depressingly enough, Mio felt the need to apologize about this to Lupus. Since this has come to light, Lupus has gone on the defense and played the victim in various instances, including in an email where she surmises that she is being attacked on the basis of her religion.
That's unrelated to the screenshot you showed. The reason she was being attacked was because she put the fact that she was Christian in her DA bio, and people assumed that she was LGBT-phobic when she wasn't. This was present in the doc. You should know this. Even Nani went over it. This seems like an attempt to misconstrue evidence.
So, yikes.
This reminds me of something Simmy and Jimmy once said.
Which I guess would be fine if you weren't acting like a holier-than-thou douche with your yikes bullshit. Just a quick word to the wise. If you are unironically using terms like yikes when discussing social or political issues, there's a 99% chance you're a moral, grandstanding, complete fucking moron.
Let's go ahead and get that out of the way. This is something I've been wanting to talk about for months.
Wait, earlier didn't you say you didn't want to make this video?
So if there was ever a situation I was expecting to talk about, it is not one in which an artist that I've been following for 5.5 years is outed as a transphobe and then decides to take everyone to church as a way of trying to clear her name of the situation. Yeah, I wanted to make a video talking about how the internet has completely failed at discussing and handling someone's age in a given situation, but it's 2020 and nothing is sacred.
I know this may not seem like a big deal, but given the inconsistency regarding Lupus's DA bio, so far VAB isn't exactly doing so well.
And situations like these make it more and more prevalent that the discussion needs to be had, and this behavior cannot go unchecked. Firstly, let's address how she views LGBT pride as a cause, which, aside from the only cause of LGBT pride literally being acceptance and equality, she's perpetuating the unfair politicization of LGBT folk and subsequently the politicization of equality.
Because equal rights is and always will be a political subject, especially in the US. I stated this before in my video on Nani.
Beyond that, despite her later correcting her sexual comment, which is another huge issue regarding how people view LGBT matters, I would not be surprised if that was just her trying to add on to the taboo of it to strengthen her supposed reasons not to support it beyond, I don't agree with it.
She just said that she didn't want to draw it. She didn't say she was against it. Like I said before, She made Pride adopts. Transphobic people don't make trans characters in their media.
Which, ugh. And yes, I'll say it, not agreeing with someone's sexuality or gender identity is stupid because it's the same as going, I don't agree with you being a woman. I don't agree that you're straight. It's literally just a part of who people are. And if you honestly think that you can claim that you can't agree with that part of a person and stop or refuse to support them because of that, and then continue to claim that you're a good loving person, then hi, reality would like to meet you.
You're not funny.
When I first put this information into a chat that one of my close friends is in, the first thing she said was, I feel like the reaction to, sorry, I can't draw the trans flag in your commission should be, okay, then your business ends here. Thank you for your time. And I want to bring that here. I completely understand, and I know that Mio himself felt like this too, that it can feel like there's some kind of obligation to keep the commission going, even when something like this happens. I especially understand how it can be difficult if the person is someone you previously looked up to or considered somewhat of a friend, especially if you're younger. So I just want to say that unless it's in the deal that there's no refunds, you should not feel pressured to keep doing business with someone who has disrespected you in this manner, and no one should pressure you or make you feel bad for not wanting to anymore. Beyond this, Lupus has been found liking tweets that basically claim progressives are hypocritical for criticizing widely held, harmful religious beliefs because they're not practicing the acceptance that they talk about so much.
Alright, fine. Let me read these tweets then. Guys, newsflash. Being a Christian is not homophobic or transphobic. Just because they don't hold the same morals as you doesn't mean they hate you. I've seen many Christians, myself included, pressured into something that we're not comfortable with. This tweet literally says that Christians don't hate them. They acknowledge that Christianity isn't LGBT-phobic in the first sentence. Just keep in mind that it's pretty rude to hate and harass somebody for not supporting your ideas. I made many friends that I cared deeply about, and there's plenty that have such different views. Okay, pretty much saying the same thing as earlier. I'm just saying it's pretty hypocritical to preach acceptance if it's not being practiced. I might not have an open mind, but I have an open heart. And they're right. How the fuck are you going to express that you want acceptance if you can't accept others? Practice what you preach.
Now this argument is brilliantly such a straw man and requires a huge victim mentality.
How exactly is this a victim mentality? They're literally just saying, practice what you preach. Also, are we really at a point where we're canceling someone over a liked tweet?
People criticize those of this religious mindset, especially those who spread that mindset, because it has actively oppressed their right to live safely as who they are.
You know what else has been known to oppress people's sexuality? Islam. Yet no one talks about it when they do it. But when Christians do it, people are suddenly up in arms about it.
Lupus, you realize that you were not born a Christian or a theist, right? Those teachings had to be taught to you. And even then, you can develop and change your religious views based on what you come to find later in life.
That is true. No one is born a specific religion. However, people are often taught about their faith at a very young age. Especially in Christianity. Babies are taught about their specific holy book during this time, so they can grow to stand by those ideals. So while no one is born in a religion, it might as well be.
You can't change your sexuality or what gender you feel most comfortable with. I mean, you can try. That's called repression, and historically it's not had great results on a person's mental health. In fact, I'd wager the effects are quite damaging. So yeah, of course, people who are spreading the notion of acceptance and equality for people based on aspects that they cannot control about themselves and which are not hurting anyone would criticize and align themselves against those who clearly do not support that belief. So at this point, you're essentially claiming LGBT folk and allies aren't practicing what they preach in regards to acceptance because they're not accepting your bigotry.
This is the last time I'm gonna repeat it. Pride adopts.
Be gone. Lupus has also stated that she straight up doesn't like quote-unquote gay stories, meaning that despite apparently loving everyone as she constantly states, she doesn't love them enough to hear their stories and has made note that they're not actually there to be stories and instead just exist to push agendas.
I mean, most of them are. At least the ones made in the US. Like, I get it. We need to teach kids that being LGBT is okay. But Steven Universe hammers that in like a rusty nail.
Hilariously enough, this distaste for gay stories is paired with her saying that she stopped watching Steven Universe for being preachy and, again, having hidden agendas. Yeah, sure, the hidden agendas of love, acceptance, accountability, and growth. Actually, yeah, I can see how you entirely missed out on those messages. Also, Lupus, honey, your own story, the audience, contained a species known as Darkies, a marginalized group in which one of the two Darkie characters is set up to be a shunned and misunderstood character based on their species. I'm sorry, what was that about hidden agendas?
Even though she isn't hammering it in like most shows do.
And actually, let's get back to her commission business because, yeah, we're not done talking about that. Lupus has also been accused of tracing for commissions. Now, granted, it's her own artwork that she's been accused of tracing and effectively using as a base, but still, oh my god, why? There's literally video evidence of her doing this.
By video evidence, you mean a single screenshot that was taken on a phone.
And to be clear, no, she did not market these as your character here pieces. She just showed an example and said that the commission would be similar. And might I mention that she was charging $120 for these headshot commissions. I'm sorry, but Butch Hartman, is that you? Seriously, what is it with these popular figures taking advantage of their popularity and charging outrageous prices for their work that they know they're going to cheap out on? And also, why is it that they're both super religious and put their beliefs onto others? So as if the discriminatory nature of her work wasn't already bad enough, yeah, she's super cheap and dishonest with her business that she's charging a pretty penny for. I am wholly unimpressed. By the way, commission's open.
Oh, you sneaky SJW Valley Girl snake. You snuck it in. Fine, you want to play it like that? Then I'm gonna go all out. Hi, CarmenRider here with an amazing new service. You gotta see it to believe it. It's the CarmenRider Commissions, an affordable price for a guaranteed product. I may not be the best in art, but I do try. For $1, you can get a sketch. For $2, you can get simple line art. And for $3, you can get a colored-in picture. Additional characters for 50 cents extra and 75 cents for a background. But I'm not done yet. For $1, I can make you a Minecraft skin or a Mega Man 8-Bit Deathmatch skin. I accept points and PayPal. And I'm still not done. For 10 cents, you can get a YCH. So what are you waiting for? Come to my DeviantArt page or message me on Discord if you're interested. Link in the description.
And don't worry, I'll draw whatever pride flag you want.
So will I, but I will respect your wishes if you're not into that sort of thing.
Except these. Go to jail!
I'll draw that one too, but only in the context of satire.
Before we get into some of the most recent stuff regarding this situation, I want to bring up a few things that I'm only going to be talking briefly about, both regarding her business practices. So previously, Lupus had a Patreon Discord server, and one of the people in the server had allegedly done some pretty bad things, although apparently they have since been proven false. Anyways, someone brought this to Lupus' attention, and she did not react as an adult should. Now, let me preface things with this. I understand not wanting to punish someone, even just temporarily, for something that you have no proof that they did. I understand being uncomfortable doing that and thus choosing not to. Oddly enough, there's a situation like this in the next video I was going to make, and don't worry, that situation is also a mess.
If you understand her point of view, then why mention it?
However, Lupus had an almost completely dismissive reaction to this information. She, as far as I can tell, did not contact the accused about this or press for further evidence, and instead just responded by going, "Aw, that sucks," and straight up admitting that she would not do anything unless the accused did something in her server specifically.
Yeah, she didn't want to get involved in potentially false accusations.
That is not how you handle this situation at all. The other thing I wanted to quickly make mention of is the cultural appropriations of some of the designs she makes.
Oh, you mean that thing that doesn't exist?
Now, part of why I'm briefly going over this is because some of the details have been eradicated from the ether that might make things a little more nuanced, but even with that, there are definite examples of her partaking in cultural appropriation and misappropriation with her designs. I can at least say that there was an instance where she was doing this, someone made note of it to her, and she quickly learned and changed it.
So you censored her simply because she referenced natives in her designs? I've already spoken my piece about cultural appropriation in my Nani video.
So maybe this is something she's working on, because I understand that growing up with the effects of colonialism can make you ignorant to the fact that what you're doing may be a problem. So I would just advise that she be more careful about the stuff she's choosing to do, and not have to be told about it afterwards because she couldn't be bothered to educate herself on the matter in the first place.
Even though it's literally taught in schools? Also, it's not racist like you're implying. At worst, it's racially insensitive, which are two different things. Now I know what you're gonna say. But CarmenRider, shouldn't racism and racial insensitivity be treated as one and the same since it could still be offensive? I think Shady Do-Rag said it best.
But I know what you're thinking. Isn't Jar saying whatever he wants and not thinking how certain ethnicities will feel about it just as bad as being racist? No, it's not. And it's a really big problem that people think these two are even remotely comparable. People want the act of being racially insensitive to upset someone as much as being a racist does. So they use the term racist to describe it. You're giving a major punishment for something it doesn't fit to.
And before you say anything, keep in mind Shady Do-Rags is black, so yeah.
That's about all I have to say regarding this point specifically. Anyways, because of these bad business practices that have come to light, much of her customers have been asking for refunds as they do not want to be working with her anymore, meaning that Lupus has been losing out on money. And guess who has come to her aid regarding that? Her parents! Yeah, allegedly Lupus' parents have been taking over and handling her business because of the quote-unquote cyberbullying that has resulted from the situation and borderline threatened to take legal action because of how her business has been affected.
No! I explained this already in my video on Nani. As you can see right here in the screenshot that Vabzusin provided, it says that they want to take legal action, but won't because Lupus forgave everyone. If anything, they're saying that they won't take legal action. If I told you, I really want to punch you in the face, but I'm not gonna, are you gonna take that as a threat? No, you wouldn't. And if you do, then you're a fucking idiot.
Which... good luck with that. Now, I personally find it weird that her parents would be taking over her business when she's in her 20s.
Most Christian families don't have as many boundaries as other families do. And thus, Lupus trusts her parents a bit more than someone like you would. I explained this to Nani already.
But how interesting is it that someone with such hardcore and devout religious beliefs such as Lupus would be close enough with her parents, those who are generally the ones responsible for injecting those religious beliefs into children at such a young age, enough to entrust them with handling her business when she's under fire for said beliefs?
Maybe she needed a mental health break. Given the shit she's been through, it's understandable.
Huh. I'm sure the two are totally disconnected.
We'll be back after these messages.
Now, since everything has gone down, you may be wondering if and how she has responded to everything said about her. And the answer is... she made a video. And that's all I can say, really, because I can't label it an apology, or even say that it adequately addresses the situation, because it doesn't. Lupus claims early on that she thought about addressing the matter directly, but instead she decided to literally preach to her audience about God's love.
Now this one I am willing to repeat from Nani's video. It's most likely she wasn't trying to preach. From the sound of her voice, it sounded more like she was having a mental breakdown. Should she have handled it better? Yes, 100%. But she wasn't making excuses or preaching like everyone claims.
Yeah, now do you see why I was confused on how I could take the commentary approach when originally deciding to make this video? Also, gotta love that the girl who claimed her show trying to give lessons about love and acceptance was too preachy for her, thought that the best course of action to clear her name was to literally preach about Jesus. Can't make this stuff up. And yes, she did monetize the video.
And you monetized this one.
We are in sitcom world. Now, I believe there is stuff to address in her video that highlights behaviorisms that I feel I should not let be slip under the radar. And before we get into things, I'm just gonna make note that I am going to be skipping through a lot of her incessant babbling, or at the very least speeding through it, much of which I will not be making note of because, oh my god, I don't care. So if you want to sit through that Triton full, then I'll have it readily linked in the description. Now, let's begin.
Hey guys, I've been wanting to talk to you. There's been so much said about me lately. Untrue things. Completely untrue.
I'm just gonna cut in here for a moment and mention this. I can't be the only one who thinks her voice is shaky in here. I mean, take the video of her during the CBN segment and compare it to her voice here and tell me that she isn't on the verge of tears.
I've thought of a couple different ways to share what the truth is. About the things which are being said about me. And about the incredibly unkind actions of some. But then after giving it some thought and prayer, I decided what I'd really like to say to you is this. People are putting words into my mouth without me even saying a word. They're calling me names based on what they imagine is in my heart, and it's not true, but still they say it. I find it incredibly unfair, but as we all know, it's really common on the internet.
Is this reminding anyone else of that cursed Minute Videos video about that one girl who claimed that she was a victim because she was shunned by her friend group for being anti-LGBT?
I felt so ashamed of myself for not supporting or accepting the LGBT plus community. I tried to tell them that it was my personal preference to not support it, but it didn't mean I hated people who are gay or lesbian.
Yeah, at first I thought that was totally something submitted by an adult, but now I think it's just Lupa's origin story. Actually, no, I can't even say that, since that girl was actually honest enough to just come clean about her LGBT phobia and not pull whatever cowardice this is.
Comparing people you don't like to other infamous figures. Now granted, I have done it myself, but only as a joke. The way you're doing it, it seems like a tactic to make yourself seem more right than you actually are.
I would assume if any of you have known me or interacted with me, most of you know my love for people is genuine. I've loved knowing you and getting to draw all of your characters. It showed me all of your amazing creativity and has been a great joy and honor in my life.
You know, I've really despised this mentality. This fake, oh, I love all of you. I love everyone. Like, no, you don't. You have to know someone to love them. And girl, you don't know me. This is just a brazenly fake way of trying to communicate that you don't hold any animosity against normal everyday people, which is most people.
And even if it is true that that's what she's saying, then where's the inherent bad here?
Beyond that, you clearly don't love these people enough to support them for literally just being who they are.
Pride adopts. Yes, I say I wouldn't point it out anymore, but if she's gonna repeat herself, then so am I.
You denied someone the right to celebrate themselves through your commissions and belittled their identity to just a cause.
Equal rights is political. I've already said that. Also, you know Lupus isn't the only one who does commissions, you know. If Lupus doesn't feel comfortable about it, then there are plenty of others who are willing.
Girl.
I love each and every one of you. Even those who hate me and viciously attack me now. I don't hold it against you because I know those who attack likely have suffered attacks in the past and must be hurting deeply inside to be doing this to me.
Gee, I wonder why being bigoted against people for literally just existing as themselves, for which historically and presently they are being discriminated against on a daily basis, and regarding them trying to be treated fairly as some kind of agenda and taboo that you specifically avoid supporting would be upsetting to people.
Pride adopts.
Do you know what God thinks of you? Before you existed, he thought, the world wouldn't be complete without one certain person I have in mind. And then he created you. He wanted you to be here. He created you and knew you even before you were born. You were created for great things, no matter what life feels like right now for you. You matter and you are important. And I know that God is active and purposefully trying to reach you. I know because he's pulled me out of a crowd and called me by name. It's really not about me, though.
Wow, finally some self-awareness. Unfortunately, however, this is about you in the sense that you need to take accountability for your actions.
You mentioned earlier that she apologized to someone for what she said. She has been doing what you guys asked her to do, even after you asked her to censor her art.
I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. I say the wrong thing sometimes. But God, he is perfect. He loves perfectly and is flawless.
What? How did we immediately go back in this direction? How is saying, oh yeah, I done flubbed up, but hey, did you know this being I believe to be perfect is perfect? Dang, isn't he cool? Like, where did you learn to apologize?
To coincide with my mental breakdown theory, it's possible that she views her religion as a safe space, and is referencing it to stay composed. Like I said, I too agree that she could have handled it better, but that doesn't change the fact that she's clearly not malicious.
Yeah, I constantly forget to send out emails, and you know, sometimes I print the wrong paperwork, but have you heard of Ashley? Man, she's always getting her work done on time and has all of her ducks in a row. Like, you're not God. And pointing out that he in your religion is a perfect being doesn't detract from the fact that your behavior is still a problem.
Again, you may hate me because of the things you've imagined about me. But I don't hate you. I love you, and I care about you, and I know that God pursues you. He wants to know you and you to know him. Not because you're perfect, but because he created you and he loves his creation. I'm just saying, if you ever invite him into whatever you're going through, he'll come and he'll help you. If you run from him, he'll chase you for the chance to have a relationship with you.
911, God keeps chasing me and trying to start a relationship with me, but I'm only 17.
Nani already made that joke 1,000,000 times and it's still not funny. Also, you're 17. Does that mean we need to give Mommy a call so she can give you a stern talking to? See, I can be condescending too.
It says in the Bible, in the book of Romans, "But Christ proved God's passionate love for us by dying in our place while we were still lost and ungodly. Not because we had cleaned up our act, but just because of his love for us."
What are you even trying to say here? Is this some sort of weird way of you saying that it doesn't matter if you clean up your act because no matter what, God will still love you and that's all you care about?
If I need to apologize for anything, it's that I'm sorry I didn't share more openly with you how much God cares about you.
Oh my god. You see, this is a huge problem with this stuff. Her faith has blinded her to the point where she can't even comprehend the fact that Christianity is not going to apply to everyone's lives. Lupus, you want to know why people enjoy those agenda shows? Because the moral lessons they provide are applicable to every person.
Yes, because even if somebody is straight, it's totally relatable to see gay rocks fuck.
Your religious and gospel teachings are not applicable to everyone's lives and do not rectify the damage that you have caused. Lupus, you have hurt people. At this point, you're just saying God loves you, so I don't have to.
Jesus gave up everything for the chance to welcome you into his family.
Alright, we're just kicking up the cultish mentality up to 100. Alright, that's cool.
You mentioned that you would only go over the points that you thought were relevant, and not a let's riff this person's mental breakdown session like Nani did. This is why I didn't go over Nani's response to this video, because this is all she did as well.
He says to love your neighbor, and that is all I've done in this community. I've never cut corners. I love you. I still love you. My goal in saying this is not to please people, obviously.
I love how she clearly knows this isn't what people want.
Nothing I say can do that.
I'm pretty sure there's a lot of ways you can please people in the world. I'd think you'd have learned that already with the, decade that you've been on the internet making content that people clearly enjoy? Why do you think you had fans in the first place?
Even though people have only heard about her recently due to this drama?
My goal is to lay my life and my business down for Christ.
You mean that business you cheap out on and practice your bigotry with? Yeah, what was that about cutting corners?
If anything I say can help someone realize how special they are and how much God loves them, then it's worth it to me to lose all that I have.
Is this permission to cancel?
No, but you clearly canceled her anyway, so it doesn't matter.
I'll end with one more thing from the Bible that I love.
Nope, if I wanted to hear about the Bible, I would have kept going to church.
No. I think judging by how you and Nani have handled this situation, I think you might need a bit of God in your life. And maybe a joke book too, to improve your humor for once.
We are stopping here.
And now, these messages.
So now that we're done with that train wreck, I want to make note of something riddled throughout her video. Now, I tried to make at least somewhat of an emphasis on it, but besides the overwhelming pushing of her religion, Lupus blatantly lied throughout the video.
Then why didn't you show a clip of that? If she was blatantly lying, then you need to bring those points up.
Denied that she ever did or said things that there's proof of her doing. None of what she preaches in the video matches her actions. She tries to riddle the viewer with feel-good, you're loved messages, straight up tries to twist reality by accusing the viewer of imagining the things they've seen about her, essentially trying to make them feel crazy for believing in them, and claims that these are all lies being pushed against her. Guys, this is gaslighting.
Oh, you mean what one of Lupus's former partners did to Lupus when he said,
"I cherish you above all others."
This comment explains it the best. Using SJW buzzwords won't get you out of this.
Now, it's not effective because she's doing it publicly, and generally in order for gaslighting to work, it needs to be done privately in an isolated situation so that no one can call it out. But the methods are all there.
I agree that Lupus should have responded better, but at the same time she clearly wasn't in a good state of mind to address the claims.
I am disgusted by this girl and how she actually thinks she can get away with it.
Well, ain't that the pot calling the kettle black?
And I'm sure as hell not going to let it go unnamed. And a quick note before we end off, because I know how my tone in this video may come off regarding religion. I grew up in a religious household, and while religion may have no part of my life anymore, I understand that it can be a part of others in a completely harmless way.
Brittany Venti, is that you?
However, this brand of religion is quite frankly outdated and is one that has caused harm to millions of people simply for existing. And it angers me especially when people like Lupus hide behind their religion to avoid taking accountability for their actions and addressing the issue at hand.
Pride adopts mental breakdown.
Beyond that, I think I've said all I have to say. Ever since Lupus tried to give a sermon about love to dismiss her bigotry, she's gone quiet on the internet. So I don't have anything else to talk about. I hope I did an alright job in covering everything and saying exactly what I wanted to say regarding this situation. Thank you for watching, and especially to my LGBT audience, you are loved and truly accepted for who you are, despite people like Lupus existing.
Aw, someone trying to butter me up to make me go easier on you. But it won't work. Now will it? And now we're gonna cover the video she did on Jar. Let's get into it.
Hello and welcome to Vabsaken, the channel that exists sometimes and somehow hasn't been shadow banned by the algorithm. So this isn't the video I had planned, shocker, but just like my last video, the subject in question today provides me a basis of stuff I was going to be discussing in depth in the future, which just again proves to me that I need to finish those damn videos as well. Also, me deciding to hop on the trending topic last time resulted in me being plastered on a Christian news network because Lupus Vulpes so desperately needed to be the victim, and CBN News apparently thought I was the best to make out to be a horrible rabid creature from the tolerant left.
You're not funny. Also, do you think that the situation of being put on the news would be a wake-up call for you to realize that you're in the wrong? But I guess not.
Either because I have a smaller platform, was more scornful of my criticisms, or both. No rest, no peace, just pain. So now's the part where I try and introduce and summarize what I'm going to be talking about, so here goes. There's a person named Toby. They make videos about stuff and were criticized by two YouTubers by the names of Kai Weiss and Omnia for multiple reasons, like she defended Shane Dawson, Shane looked at a baby and came Dawson, and then made a poorly developed take about people who draw particular art of characters that are below the legal age of adulthood in such a way that she incidentally put herself in the category of P-word.
If you're gonna talk about shit like this, just say the word. Don't beat around the bush. Just say the word pedophile.
By her own logic. Gotta love when that happens. And generally was just super reactionary from what I've been able to gather. Since the initial critiques of Toby, multiple creators, small and large, mostly large, have since come out of the woodworks in what I can only really describe as a compulsive contrarian mess against Kai and Omnia. Shame. Most of these videos, including the one being covered today, claim to be unbiased to some degree, but most people felt the descriptor didn't really match the contents of the videos, which overwhelmingly were against Kai and Omnia. It's not even that bias is the end-all be-all of whether or not you can make a quality video with valid points. Hell, a lot of my videos are biased.
Oh, believe me, I can tell.
My video against Slice of Otaku is biased.
Yeah, which one is that again?
My video against Penegrin is biased. Does that make them bad videos?
Admitting to biases doesn't make it good. In fact, it just shows that you're not willing to look at the other side.
No, because I didn't let my bias cloud my judgment and either keep me from making valid points or make me spew points that are dishonest and bad faith. The same cannot be said for most of the response videos to Kai and Omnia. Now, Kai and Omnia, mostly Kai, have responded to basically every video that's come out against them, which then others responded to, and back and forth, you get the idea. This month, some content creators by the names of Just a Robot, or Jar for short, Manga Kamen, and Fuchsia Butter, a close friend of Toby's, got together to make a god-awful video talking about the situation. That is why we're here today. But there's actually a couple things that I feel I need to address before we finally get into the video. I can never just do something, it has to be prefaced by like 12 disclaimers.
If it's a content warning, then you've already done it.
Anyways, this situation has been very racially charged for basically all of it. Kai and Omnia are both black creators who decided to speak on racial issues. Most of the people who have gotten involved afterwards are white. And while I feel there's some valid criticisms in regards to how race has been brought up in specific instances since the whole situation exploded, there's no doubt that racial issues absolutely have a place in the discussion here. Recently, Spockter, another white creator incidentally, has kind of called for an end to the racial aspects of the situation, or at least to speak on them to a lesser degree. That's at least what I got from the video, and I can't really get behind that for a lot of things. Especially with the video I'm covering today, and you'll see exactly what I mean. You can't really get on my case for upholding the racial issues and implications here.
Yeah, I can. You're not immune from criticism. If Spockter wanted it to end, then shouldn't you respect that as to not make the situation worse? Now granted, Jar did the same thing, but Spockter talked to it with him behind the scenes.
I mean, you can, but I don't know if you'll have much of a leg to stand on. Also, I know that Omnia and Kai aren't really pleased about this whole situation still existing, which I can't really blame them for.
Then why keep the cycle going? Most people who criticize Jar for reigniting the drama are doing the same thing in themselves.
But there's some stuff that I don't think anyone who's talked about Jar's video has really gone in depth about or mentioned, and so I want to talk about them here. Also, Jar made a follow-up video where he apologized for some stuff, which, cool, but there's more problems that came about from it as well.
So, Jar did what you wanted, yet you're still not satisfied? Again, with the you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
We'll talk about that whole thing at the very end of the video. Now, I actually scripted this whole thing out a while ago and planned to have this video released like before Thanksgiving, but then I had a whole bunch happen with sickness and having to turn in college application stuff because we live in a society. So I'm not outright denying that there's probably some hypocrisy to a degree in me making this video, given how much I'll be criticizing dishonesty through upholding outdated incidents as current indicators of a person's character.
Then why not rewrite your script to be updated?
You can criticize me all you want for that, and I probably won't agree with most of the criticisms, but like, do it.
I mean, I can be smug too, you know.
Call me evil, you won't. But also, I believe a lot of the stuff that I am criticizing the people in this video for is stuff that they have not apologized for, which the same cannot be said for the criticisms that they bring up against Kai and Omnia. So just to be clear, this video isn't really about Kai and Omnia, they're just included because there's no real way to disconnect them when covering this video. So, Omnia, Kai, if you're watching this, sorry.
And if Kai and Ami are watching this, I want them to keep in mind that I'm a person of color too. So don't come at me with that, you're white, you can't talk about this bullshit.
I'm not gonna be trying to bring up anything on you guys, stuff that's already been resolved or anything like that, so don't worry. I don't think I need to worry though. Jar already established authority and gave permission for anyone who wants to join in to do so.
Anyone else who wants to join in? Join in.
Thanks for the permission, Jar. Quick final note, I'm going to be skipping over parts that I don't have anything to say on while trying my best to keep the necessary context. I'm linking their video in the description, so if you check it out and find that I accidentally cut something important, you can go ahead and waltz into the comment section and tell me while you up the engagement on this video.
Well, I'm not going to be doing that. I'm going to make a commentary, that way you don't benefit.
And now that I've spent 2 pages prefacing everything, let's finally get on to the video.
We'll be right back after these messages.
No! I'm not letting you quit on Harsh and Nani just because you're scared of the mob.
I don't think I can do anything, Jar-senpai. All that will happen is they will come for my ass next.
That's funny. I remember saying the same thing to you about a certain green lizard.
Fair point, but I don't want to f it up. Like you did.
Oi!
Being honest, I think it was pretty inappropriate to just bring that situation up out of nowhere, as if there's any correlation between the two of them.
Irony.
If there is, then we sure as hell won't know because you guys never bring it up. It seems like the only reason you brought this up was to try and draw a parallel between supposed rabbit attacking from fans, whenever you contest the points made by the original perpetrator of the situation.
No, he was doing a skit.
But that's just not the case here, sorry. Kai and Omnia have been criticized and have taken responsibility for their actions, unlike how things were going in the other situation you're alluding to. Unimpressed. Also, keep the mention of this situation in mind because it's going to pour water all over Jar's circuits later.
You're not funny.
I'm joining in because Toby is my friend.
Great.
So, it's okay for you to admit to being biased, but a friend of Toby is immediately dismissed? Okay.
After this, they talk about how they're going to cover Kai's video response to Harsh Opinion's video on Kai and Omnia. Dizzying, I know.
This video starts off with a message saying, please don't attack anyone mentioned in this video. But looking at Harsh's video, it got a ton of dislikes, and some of the worst hate comments I have ever seen. And yes, if you look at the comments, you can clearly tell they didn't even watch the video.
Really? That's your evidence of hate and attacking? First of all, your first point is Uwu dislikes mean, and the comments you show are literally just saying that they don't like seeing black people be told when they should and shouldn't be vocal about racial issues that affect them. Please, the first video I ever posted on this channel where I covered Digbert the Goatman got dislike bombed, and a slew of actual hateful, mean comments that weren't even addressing my arguments or making any of their own.
Oh, like my video on Creepshow Art. Also, he's just pointing out the video got unfairly ratioed.
I even had people calling me the slur for Jewish people because they thought my character was Jewish.
I mean, what white person has a huge fucking afro like that and isn't Jewish? Bitch, you look like Jimmy T from WarioWare.
Not a good look. It's kind of funny that I can get better evidence of actual hate on a single video of mine from 3 years ago than Jar can collect from like 4 comment sections on videos all released within the past few months. Also, people watching, don't watch that video.
Well, if you insist.
You know, maybe the comments about my voice had a point.
I mean, you do sound like a fucking valley girl.
I really don't want to get into the topic of the race comments because that's a whole other can of worms that really didn't need to be f***ing open.
Okay, first off, yikes. Second, you're right. Toby isn't a mind reader, but neither is Omnia. Also, notice how both of us are speaking on their behalves right now? Just wanted to point that out. Omnia may have consented to the conversation, but she could not have expected Toby to go on a rant about racism versus racial insensitivity. Also, a can of worms that didn't need to be fucking opened? You're a white woman. Who are you to say that? That can of worms is open for me and Omnia both, every day of our lives as black people. If that BLM in your Twitter name meant anything, you would know how foolish it is to say this.
Who are you, as a white woman, to say this? Shut the f*** up, bro. That is actually racist.
He really just said that.
Yeah, because it is racist. You better not say what I think you're gonna say.
Okay, you know what? Let's hear him out.
A black man can say what he wants, just like a white girl. Also, she isn't white, she's mixed.
It's the same fucking thing.
She even said, I don't want to get into the topic of the race comments. So as a quote-unquote white woman, she doesn't want to get into it. You can never appease these victim cults. You get into something, they're offended. You don't want to get into something, they're still offended. People in Harsh's comments are attacking her for the can of worms comment, demanding that she apologizes to Kai. They're acting like it's the worst thing to say to a black person. Who are you as a man to tell a woman what she can and cannot say? See, I can do it too.
Wow, that was awful. Okay, there's a lot to unpack here.
Not really?
And I actually have so much to say on this topic specifically that I'm going to pause criticism on the video for now.
No, you don't get to pause me. I'm gonna stay.
Now, of course, the original situation wasn't about racial issues. They originally played a pretty small part, actually. But since then, other creators have focused more and more on the issue, and Jar certainly planted his feet in the topic, so I thought, you know, I'm game. I'll bite. We'll get back into things when I'm finished with this. Just don't expect to be seeing the video again for a bit. This was a big reason why I wanted to talk about this video. You know, as a brown person. I want to see if I can explain these issues and provide a perspective that people can get behind and empathize with. So first off, Jar strawmanning, like hardcore strawmanning. Here Kai is saying to someone that he believes is a white person that it's not their place to tell black people, or any other racial minority group for that matter, when they can and can't speak on racial issues and injustices that affect them. Jar responds to this by completely removing the aspect of topic from the equation to say that anyone can say what they want, implying that Kai is in some way attempting to suppress Harsh's freedom of speech.
He was saying that she can't talk about certain things because she's a white woman, even when she's not.
He tries to paint it in a way that just makes it sound like Kai is trying to silence who he believes to be white people.
Pretty much came off that way.
Which isn't the case. That's a straw man used to fearmonger that's common in right-wing and, wouldn't you know it, white supremacist spaces.
And Just because white supremacists say it doesn't make the argument instantly invalid. If a white supremacist said, water is good for you, does that mean that they're instantly wrong and water isn't actually good for you? Of course not. Honestly, you claim that Jar is strawmanning, but here you are, framing him as a racist. Yeah, you didn't say it directly, but you pretty much implied it.
The lie of a minority takeover, the great replacement, if you will, has been used for generations. Now, I'm not going to hop on here and call Jar a white supremacist.
You pretty much implied it.
Then I'd be just as irresponsible as him. I also don't want to believe he is one, but I will say that he should probably stop spewing their talking points like yesterday. He then goes on to push the idea that Kai is upset that Harsh refuses to talk about the race comments, which is seemingly contradictory, so that he can then tear down Kai's persona as someone who there's no winning with and who just wants to be upset for the sake of being upset. In actuality, Kai specifically focused on the comment that bringing up the racial issues was unnecessary, which he feels is someone, again, who he thinks is white, trying to dictate how appropriate it is for him to speak up against injustices that affect him, and whether he should or not, seemingly to fit their comfort.
She was trying to say that she didn't want to get into the topic, yet they were dragging her in.
That is an actual form of silencing. You see, in society... we live in a society. There's an issue in which minorities are supposed to be silent on their struggles and kowtow to the comfort of those in a privileged position.
No, in fact, I'd argue that society does the opposite and encourages people to make up issues that don't exist.
This goes for a lot of things, but especially for race, where the topic for generations has been geared towards the comfort of white people, and movements like BLM and the civil rights movement are made to strip that comfort away in favor of seeing the reality of things and amplify the voices of those that were previously suppressed. There's a lot of psychology behind why this is, because if white people acknowledge the systemic racism of America, they have to acknowledge that there's a problem that they've specifically been benefiting from their whole lives.
Did you just try to use the white guilt card? Either way, this isn't even relevant to the subject.
But we can't just ignore an issue because it makes us uncomfortable when it's severely affecting people's lives, now can we?
Okay, I fucking hate this mentality with a burning passion. The idea that there should be no escapism from political issues. This is why teens and young adults commit suicide and are more depressed. Because their peers pressure them into caring about politics 24/7, and thus they get stressed. I had the same thing happen to me, and honestly, I almost ended it. Fortunately, one of my viewers reached out to talk to me, and they talked me out of it. To which I thank them. They already know who they are. Now, I'm not trying to guilt trip or anything, but I'm trying to express how being overly political can be harmful to mental health.
So you may be wondering why people are so upset about that can of worms comment and thinking,
it probably isn't even something that really matters or even happens all that much.
Because it doesn't? Yeah, racism exists, but it's not as common as SJWs make it out to be.
To which I say, it does, and it can have real harm. I've only recently come out about my Indigenous American and Mexican heritage earlier this year because of the courage and confidence that the Black Lives Matter movement provided to me. And even then, I've already had a handful of white people pulling the whole, I have a native friend, and trying to dictate what I should and shouldn't be upset about when it comes to people mishandling things of my own heritage. One situation was particularly egregious, and I'll be talking about it in a moment. So why bring it up so publicly? Why can't we just talk to people about it? Well, the obvious answer is that it's kind of hard to just talk to every person individually about things. You may have heard the phrase, it's not people of color's jobs to educate you, which, yeah, it isn't. People have things in their lives they need to do, but unfortunately, like practically all bigotry, the issues surrounding racism stem from ignorance in most cases.
Or, and this might be a hunch, or maybe it's because people are uncomfortable with race-related discussion because it stresses them out.
So we need activists. We need public and accessible content that educate on these topics so that instead of asking random black people to explain racism, we can direct you to places and things that can.
Yeah, why ask an actual minority how they feel when we can just make media politically correct?
Another reason why we can't just talk about things in such an individual manner is because sometimes that just doesn't work and leads to people doing bad things. Let's talk about that situation I alluded to a bit ago. So there was a situation that took place back during the whole Lupus Volpez debacle back in August August and September. I made a whole video on it, go check it out. Basically, I was explaining to some of my friends the whole thing about her participating in cultural appropriation of indigenous cultures. Basically why it was a problem for her choosing to use a creature from indigenous cultures without knowing anything about it, seeing as the way she drew the creature looks nothing like how it should and instead looks like something that could be more accurately connected to the Wechige, a similar creature of neighboring indigenous communities. A very popular white creator, Chaos55T, jumped in and didn't really understand the nuances of cultural appropriation and the idea that not all cultures are on the same playing field. I decided to take time out of my day to educate her on how the effects of colonialism have made cultural appropriation of indigenous cultures especially harmful and why people should be sensitive when it comes to depicting them.
Maybe I should have played the Shady Do-Rags clip a bit later in this video.
I tried to explain that cultural appropriation is a neutral term at its core, and in many cases can be completely harmless if the culture being taken from is a dominant culture that's never been diminished or exploited by colonialism.
Yes, the "your people did this to my people 100 years ago" argument. Literally every race has done bad to people. White people have done bad, black people have done bad, Latinos have done bad, Asians have done bad. Every race has done something bad. I guess by that logic we should appropriate everyone's culture then.
Anyways, this devolved into the whole I have a native friend trope that became a long tiring argument between me and said friend that was a whole bunch of nothing. So anyways, the day goes on and I think I've done a pretty good job in explaining things, only to find out that literally the day after, Chaos took to Twitter and used her platform of nearly 8,000 followers, to go on a diatribe basically insinuating that it's either okay to take from all cultures or none of them.
Okay, let's read. If we're gonna be virtue signaling here, let's stop making OCs off of any culture mytho creature. No Chinese dragons, no ants, no ice giants, no voodoo dolls, no revenants, no nekomatas, kitsunes and tanukis, and so on. Add more to this list and see how ridiculous this is getting. To 2020. I mean, she's right. If we can't make characters of one culture, then we can't make characters of anything. But let's keep on reading. How is it that these mythical creatures are fine to make OCs of, where it's fine to go slightly off the original design or completely off model? Each one is from different cultures, names, tales, origins, traditions, etc. Sometimes the artist isn't even from those cultures, but it's somehow fine. Exactly. It's hypocritical that people get mad at people for making OCs of native cultures, but it's not okay for other cultures. I guess if you're not Chinese, then you're not allowed to make a dragon OC. If you're not Greek or Indian, you're not allowed to have a unicorn OC. And if you're not Mexican, you can't have a skeleton OC. And if you're not Japanese, you can't have a kitsune or tanuki OC. And if you're not white, you can't have a fairy OC. See how this doesn't work? But drawing these creatures, even remotely off the original design by anyone, is suddenly more controversial. As you can see, Chaos's statements are perfectly fine.
And when someone tried to pull the whole, guess we can't use anything from Greece, you know, that culture that we read epic poems from in high school and learn cultural context while doing so, Chaos took what I said about the effects of colonialism and how it exploited and diminished indigenous American, African, and Pacific cultures to an insane amount and spat in the face of it by reducing the issue to a matter of simple popularity.
Alright then, let's read. I guess that means no creatures of Greek or Roman mythology, right? Apparently those are okay, because they're popular. But Chaos, it's still cultural appropriation. She was pointing out the hypocrisy of people using supernatural creatures from Greek culture, but being against other cultures using it. Also, you see she spat in the face of it? No, she didn't. She just pointed out a double standard.
This was so upsetting. I was tired. I was furious that she thought this was okay to do, even after I laid things out for her, and believe me, she's aware of how I feel, and that bridge has long since been burned.
Ah, yes. Breaking friendships due to conflicting opinions. Don't you love the modern day? Whatever happened to agree to disagree?
So when minority groups choose to speak up and call out others not from those minority groups for issues that affect them in a public scale, and then feel greatly uncomfortable when others try and tell them when they should and shouldn't speak on those issues, it's because stuff like this happens. And that's a problem that we have to call out if we ever hope to make progress. And like, this isn't me revving the engines on some like cancel Chaos 55T initiative, hashtag Chaos 55T is over party. Canceling is pretty anti-progressive in a vast majority of cases, so let's not. I also want people to know that this stuff isn't all on white people or other dominant majority groups. I'm also holding our minority communities accountable for some of this because yes, while I had to deal with chaos, I also had to deal with the minority friends. The friends who tell you you're taking the issue too seriously, and then you go to their profile and the first tweet you see is of them saying "F Black Lives Matter" and "F LGBT." The friends who insinuate that it's fine to say those things because he's part black.
Alright, let's read again. So I saw a post about how when it comes to OCs based on mythical creatures from actual cultures, indigos are the ones that are called out instead of everything else, as people usually depict them with deer skulls, which are actually wachuge. I think you're looking a bit too much into it, Chief. Many fictional characters, societies, etc. use bits and pieces of actual facts and combine them. For example, the typical depiction of a dragon is a combination of several dragons from various mythologies. I mean, they're right. A lot of modern cultures are based on bits and pieces of other cultures. Why have I not deleted Twitter yet? I just want to say, fuck BLM, fuck the LGBTQ plus community, fuck whatever point on the political spectrum cock you suck. Why would I, a biracial bi person, feel this way? Because every single one of these groups are toxic as fuck. He's not saying that he hates black people or LGBT people like you're implying. They're saying that BLM as a movement and the LGBT community are toxic, which they are. I've already mentioned the BLM kidnapping a few times, and there are plenty of black people who are against BLM as a movement. And the LGBT community can be extremely toxic and often being heterophobic at times. And yes, heterophobia does exist. He is black and is 3-gen native. Also, funny how you used my words in your post and cut out the context. Imagine thinking being black makes it okay, fuck BLM and fuck LGBT. Lamau, you're embarrassing. By the looks of it, you're trying to take away this person's blank card just because you don't agree with them. Well, yeah, no one speaks for their entire race. It's okay to get the opinions of other people of other races as well.
The friends who throw other people of their ilk under the bus and undermine the issues. The people like Fuchsia who say Trump isn't a slur against trans people, most notably trans women, and get it in their friends like Toby's heads that it's okay to say stuff like this.
Really? Are we really doing this again? This is what we're doing? Fine. We'll do this thing again. I've already done a video on the term trap before, and I even linked Fuchsia Butter's video on it. Trap is literally just a person with a penis who identifies as a male, and can cross-dress to look like an actual woman, and is usually used with memes and pranks to me like, you think I'm a girl, ha, I'm actually a dude, got you. Furthermore, guys who are traps aren't transitioning. Just because a guy likes to wear girls' clothes here and there, or looks feminine, doesn't mean they want to transition, you stupid fucks. I mean, she's right. Trap isn't the same as trans.
Yes, let's just ignore how the word has been used to push a narrative that trans women are tricking men by being trans.
That's not what she was saying at all. She was talking about the differences between trap and trans. I highly recommend you see her video on it. It's quite informative, and you'll get the opinions of an actual trans person.
A narrative that has been used to justify murdering them. Let's just ignore that the gay and trans panic defense laws that allow them to do that are still active in 39 states.
That's why you invest in a gun. Or stun gun if it's not legal in your area.
Let's just ignore the fact that there are still people who push the narrative to this day.
I mean, yeah. There are going to be transphobic people in the world. Like I said in my video on Nani, discrimination will always exist, at least on a social level.
Oh man, it ain't a slur. Sure. Okay. I believe it. Now, both of these tweets have since been deleted, and the two have supposedly been educated on the matter. But my point about this stuff not just being on majority groups is really what I'm trying to make here. I have been seeing so much of the whole minority throws other minorities under the bus and then gets used for confirmation bias trope a lot recently, and it's tiring.
So, because a minority group doesn't agree with you, suddenly their opinion doesn't matter?
Friggin' holy match. Sorry. I'm channeling semi-classic Sonic fan. Freaking Holy Majesty out here making videos about Blacktober and how actually everyone should be allowed to participate in Blacktober. God, should I talk about those videos? Because I've actually had a video about characters of color in media that I've been wanting to make for well over a year now, and I wonder if you guys would be interested in hearing my thoughts on them. Now, I don't think many of the people that made videos on Omnia and Kai are racist. Like Nani, I don't believe she's racist. I appreciated when she called out Lupus Volpez for profiting off of her culturally appropriative work, and even then acknowledged her position as a white person. I've also spoken to her about this situation and explained to her how she could be more sensitive to the topic of race in the future, and she was incredibly responsive. I also don't believe Harsh Opinions is racist, obviously. I think she's just bad at wording, which, same. Kai and Harsh even unlisted their videos on each other after talking things out, so that's cool. That's base.
And so did Just a Robot. But who cares about what he did? Because I have a bias.
And on that note, I also want to say that I don't think ignorance characterizes a person as much as their response to receiving information and what they do once they no longer have that ignorance. I wasn't furious with Chaos because she didn't understand the complexities of cultural appropriation.
Even though you remarked that she spat on it? I don't know, that sounds pretty mad to me.
I was furious with her because she took what I said to educate her and bastardized it on her public platform.
Oh, you mean you disagreed with her?
That, I think, is what really says something. And my god, does that not say anything good about the people being covered in this video, specifically Jar and Fuchsia, given their public responses to sensitive issues brought up in this video, as well as racial issues in the past. Like, let's finally address the elephant in the room. Is anyone else made extremely uncomfortable by the fact that 3 white people banded together against 2 black people so that the main person could directly accuse one of them of being racist for not liking that a perceived white person was trying to dictate how appropriate it is for him to speak on racial injustices?
Did you just... You did? You pulled the Creepshow art card. You're calling Just a Robot, Manga Common, and Fuchsia racist just because they criticized a black person. I need a break. I need a break. I can't do this shit anymore. I can't do this shit anymore. That was not a joke, by the way. I legitimately had to walk away from the computer because of how stupid that statement was. Criticizing people of a minority does not make you racist. You know, it's funny how you claim that Lupus was acting like the victim, when here you are, acting like the victim. Moving on.
Is anyone else made uncomfortable by the fact that Jar took Kai's segment about the greater struggles faced by black people in his video and bastardized it to...
Jar, you do realize black people have more problems than white people, right?
Oh look, here's Jar tweeting about the Steven Universe ad, encouraging white people to listen and believe black and other minorities talking about their struggles. A lesson Jar clearly hasn't learned. Complaining because society dislikes gay people more than it dislikes black people.
To which he is right. Not society, but there's more LGBT phobia in the world than there is racism. He even did a video on the topic.
Wow, what a great point. I don't know why people are so against the idea that people in marginalized groups can still be bigoted in other ways. And funnily enough, when I was checking to make sure that everyone here I was talking about was white, I found Fuchsia talking about how whitewashing isn't an issue and neither is blackwashing, in response to someone attempting to highlight a key difference between the two practices.
Even though she's right, race bending can work if done correctly.
God, JonTron moment.
Alright, I need another minute. JonTron was not racist. He was just a white person who had opinions relating to race. If you're white, you're allowed to have opinions on race.
Racism goes both ways in the States. There's no difference between the two.
Yeah, there's not. Racism is racism.
Guys, we can't just ignore all the current systemic racism in the United States that's prefaced by centuries of tragedies against humanity. I bet a lot of you guys don't even know that Native Americans aren't even guaranteed the right to vote anymore, since the Supreme Court rolled back protections secured during the 1960s in 2012.
Jar isn't ignoring these issues. He does understand that racism is a problem. In fact, he mentions it in his Steven Universe video.
Now states that have a history of racial bias in voting laws don't have to get federal permission to go through with new ones. And even before that, states like Arizona, home of the Apache, the Navajo, and other Native American tribes, started requiring voter IDs that many indigenous Americans that were born on reservations have an extremely difficult time obtaining. That doesn't even account for issues faced by other people of color. I just talked about the experience of many Native Americans because we're so often forgotten in the conversation. A lot of people of color face similar issues.
Well, yeah. Every race experiences racism at some point. Some more than others. I've had customers be racist to me when I used to work at Sonic Drive-In. But Jar isn't denying that. Again, go watch his video on Steven Universe.
And have others that are mostly unique to them. And trust me, there's a lot of stuff I'd be more than willing to talk about, but this video would be 5 days long, and I'm not really trying to single-handedly end racism with a single video of mine.
Wait, so earlier you said that people should get involved with stopping racism, but now you're saying that you don't want to because the video will be 3 days long? Practice what you preach. Longer videos equal more ad revenue and watch time.
Now, I'm not saying that I want white people to feel like guilty over white privilege.
Then why did you hesitate?
White guilt is cringe. White privilege shouldn't exist, but unfortunately in the world we live in, it does, and just because it shouldn't doesn't mean we can just pretend that it doesn't.
While it does exist, it's not as big of a thing as people make it out to be. People act like white privilege is the equivalent to God mode, when in reality all it means is that some people will have a slight bias towards you.
And refuse to work towards leveling out the playing field. I'm also not saying that people of color can't be like super prejudiced against white people for being white. I think that sucks. I think it's stupid and does nothing for us. I think it's super anti-progressive. But you have to recognize the difference.
I mean, you guys want equality, right? The only way we can achieve that is by recognizing that all racism is the same and treated as such.
Racism against white people is very much individualist, but racism against minorities is a systemic force that's done almost incalculable damage in the States and continues to do damage without proper actions taken to reverse the effects.
While that is true, racism is still racism.
One is clearly more of an issue and does more damage than the other. Despite all that, I don't think you can't say that a person of color is saying something racist, especially against other minorities, but there's a big distinction between just saying that and saying it with the understanding of how different racism is in going from white to brown and vice versa.
Racism is bad either way. Hell, there are people who are racist to their own race. Back in the 50s and 60s, there were black slave owners. There's a whole group of people on Twitter who are white and claim to hate white people.
It's a huge optics and semantics issue that, I don't even have figured out at this point in time. By the way, Kai and Omnia, I can totally empathize with you on getting called racist for stupid reasons.
They were being racist, because they said that white people can't speak on race issues.
I had a Canadian white guy call me racist because I told him I didn't like him as a Canadian talking down to me about American politics. Shout out to the Canadian race. Now, with all that finally said, I don't want to call Jar and Fuchsia racist, but as I've looked more into the situation, I find it harder and harder to believe that these racist incidents are products of ignorance and more a product of a complete dismissal of minority voices and the black struggle.
Oh yeah, I'm not calling you racist. I just heavily implied it in the whole video.
I find their unwillingness to listen to people of color so gross and disheartening.
Like you did when you claimed that a black person criticizing the BLM movement didn't speak for black people. And while not race-related, claimed that Fuchsia didn't speak for trans people because she said trap isn't a slur.
And yeah, I'll say it, it comes off as incredibly racist to me.
So, by your logic, you're racist.
I don't like it. Carmen's pretty much excluded from this whole section, by the way. All I really have to ask is what the hell you were doing during the scripting process. So, finally, I think we can get back to covering the video. Right now, they're just talking about how they're allowed to comment on the situation and flaunt their epic First Amendment rights by doing so. Thank you for listening to my gigantic spiel there. For doing so, I award you with the grand prize of nothing.
And to compensate for the audacity of this bitch, I award all of you a collage of everyone's characters. Just leave a comment of your favorite character down below, and I'll put every one of them in my banner. Eventually.
And now, these messages.
Before we begin, I'm going to say this. Opinions expressed by Manga and Jar about Toby do not reflect my own. They are both entitled to their opinions, however. I'm here because I care about Toby a lot. I know she struggles when she's under immense pressure, and I'm just here to figure out both what's going on and try to help by covering the topic.
Wait, you're here to figure out what's going on? Shouldn't you already know what's going on already when you decide to thrust your opinions on the matter into the ether? I'm going to assume that was a weird miswording on your part, but wow if it doesn't sound like a Freudian slip to me given what's to come in this video.
I mean, your wording hasn't been much better.
And actually, now they're just explaining the entire situation, basically, which, upon reviewing, I thought was weird. Like, why now? I actually didn't even catch this going into the video at first because I already knew about the whole situation, but this is literally the first point at which they stop to explain what the hell they're even talking about. In the introduction, they mention a bunch of names with no background and videos without giving their audience a sprinkle of context, which all I have to say is, wow, that just makes bringing up the situation involving Spoctor, which Carmen does again in this part, even worse for anyone who knows what that situation was about, false predator allegations, but knows nothing about this situation, since you're giving the audience the idea that the two are similar in any substantial manner, which, no, they're not.
He didn't say that at all. He was doing a skit and mentioned Spoctor. Also, I haven't even heard of this situation till now.
And no, this wasn't even the instance I was alluding to about how mentioning that situation would come back to bite them. But now I guess there's two instances? Anyways, they're criticizing Toby now. Cool. Gonna skip over this part because, yeah, I agree. Toby completely failed at handling any of this.
Omnia and Kai, you're like a spring-loaded pair of boxing gloves. When people dare to even question you, or even dare to be skeptical about your arguments, your responses are less than stellar. Also, it's a little egocentric to just assume people are talking about you. Like when you both got on the case of Mad Libs because you both thought she was talking about you two. When you two were too rash not to check the dates. Your video came out on the 19th and the tweet here is the 16th. Dumbass.
Okay. Let's mention something real quick. Kai and Omnia recognize their mistake here and apologize.
And so did Jar, but I guess we're just gonna ignore that.
In Kai's video.
Omnia and I both made a miscommunication in this subtweet that Libby made about Z Fix's art. Omnia assumed that it was about her and replied, and I went on to defend her as well. That's our bad. We made a lapse in judgment.
You wanna know when that video was released? September 24th.
Wanna know when Jar's apology or response was released? November 21st, 2020. Wanna know when this video was released? December 11th, 2020. Practice what you preach.
This is something Fuchsia does a lot in this video. She brings up mistakes that have already been recognized and resolved, and tries to paint them as an issue, or ask questions that she knows the answer to. Jar and Carmen continue to lambaste Omnia and Kai for this incident, and try and make it indicative of a larger issue, which is just about the most dishonest thing. You three are really going to sit here and try and convince me that Omnia and Kai are hyper-reactionaries who are afraid of criticism, and your only evidence is an incident on Twitter from over a month ago that was rectified over a month ago?
Yeah, just like how Jar tried to make amends before this video.
No, Carmen even mentions how they've apologized for this situation.
And to be fair, both of them realized this, and in a follow-up video, Kai actually admitted to this.
Then why criticize them? If they know Kai apologized and addressed this, then what exactly are you criticizing?
But tries to pull the whole, just because they've apologized doesn't mean they can't be criticized for it.
Which is true? No one is immune from criticism. Now I know what you're gonna say. But CarmenRider, you said that Jar apologized before, so why are you getting upset of Abzusen talking about it? Because it's videos like this that are slandering Jar and falsely marking him as a racist. If it's just criticism over something that isn't slanderous, then whatever, I don't care. But don't slander him and don't mark him as a racist.
Which, in instances like this, that statement begins and ends with its most surface value and literal interpretation. I can criticize my friends for stupid things they did in the past and have apologized for, but what would be the point in doing that? What point would I be trying to make? What lesson would there be to learn?
This video was mainly meant to document the Toby drama, not to fully criticize it. Yeah, they do make criticisms in between, but at the same time, the video is meant to document the drama as well. similar to the videos Jar did on Sonic 93.
You guys are making an argumentative video, but what you're talking about here does nothing except act as a method for you three to try and spew a dishonest narrative about the people you're criticizing.
No, it's a video that's just documenting the drama, with criticisms in between.
Then there's the response to this gem. So Harsh Opinions made a response to Kai's follow-up video, which I suggest you guys check out, since it does have an interesting response to Kai. But what I find funny is the response from Kai in that video's comment section.
I don't agree with a lot of this video, but I'm always open to different perspectives being out there. I appreciate your take on this, even if we stand on opposite sides. Not gonna lie, this kind of response irks me on a personal level. Because not only does Harsh Opinions make it clear in her video at the beginning that she isn't standing with Toby, even criticizing her as well at the beginning, and saying that she's being neutral.
Not really an opposing side. She's a third party who, by her own decisions, finds you and Omnia on the same level as Toby.
First off, we're just not gonna talk about the whole black SpongeBob
No, we aren't, because it's a fucking PNG, you absolute sensitive snowflake.
thing. Jar already explained how that happened and apologized for it.
So you're fine with bringing it up, but you get on Jar's case for bringing up something Kai already apologized for? Practice what you preach.
Moving on. So, okay, we've already gone through the whole song and dance about how the videos responding to Omnia and Kai were supposedly unbiased at the beginning of this video, and how that doesn't dictate whether you actually present yourself in that manner, but wow, you guys just don't understand words. To be on opposing sides, to be in opposition to one another, just means that your statements or beliefs are in conflict with each other.
In the case of debates, that is true. But in the case of drama, it's different. Saying that you're on opposing sides in terms of trauma mostly means that you're supporting the other side. Now, it's most likely that they didn't mean it like that, but at the same time, this was an incredibly poor way to word things. Plus, it comes off as holier than thou.
If Kai says, I don't think I did much wrong and I'm in the right, and Harsh Opinion says, you're just as bad as Toby, yes, those are opposing sides.
And the fact that you took the route of not addressing anything in her video with your comment is really limp-wristed. It shows weakness in your argumentative skills.
That's not how that works. That would only be indicative of weak argumentative skills on Kai's end if he was trying to make an argument in that comment. But he wasn't. He was just showing that he watched the video. You see, what actually shows weak argumentative skills is cherry-picking an already resolved incident to try and push the narrative that it's a widespread current issue, or strawmanning someone to your argumentative favor so you can accuse them of bigotry.
Yeah, like you did with this video and what Luke did with his video.
Funny.
Which, hey, I can't say that I don't appreciate you not starting more drama at all, and not starting a slap fight in the comments. But at the same time, why even bother commenting if you aren't going to address anything?
Because he can, and doing so notifies Harsh that he's seen their video. You know that he made a video listing all of his arguments. Jar used it earlier in this video to accuse Kai of being racist.
To which he was being racist. He was saying that white people can't talk about racially charged issues.
You're literally just whining because he didn't put his arguments in the comment, and that's a problem because reasons. You don't have a point. Stop talking.
Irony.
From here, they go on to bring up the situation that I alluded to at the beginning of this video, where Toby threw out an emotional, poorly developed, and poorly worded take about people who draw minor characters in sexual situations, which she considers CP. She also considers anyone who draws those things to be, in her own words, a P-word. Kai criticized this point of hers, considering that Toby herself has drawn minor characters in undeniably sexual manners, specifically Todoroki and Usagi as Sailor Moon, both of whom are 16, the oldest. So the point Kai made was basically that according to her logic of what makes a P-word, she herself would be considered one. Also, the reason why I'm going over this myself is because the way that Triop goes over it, they give absolutely no context as to what the hell this situation is. Seriously, Fuchsia just throws out the sentence, you implied Toby could be a P-word, and the rest just run with it.
Not really. They pretty much explained the situation, and Manga Comment gave a way that they could have phrased it better.
without ever mentioning that the situation which Toby could be considered a P-word is purely hypothetical and one that was created by Toby herself. These galaxy brains then go on to criticize Kai's phrasing and try and talk about ways that he could have worded himself better when they don't even show the original phrasing.
I do agree that they should have showed it, but at the same time, they have a point.
They just vaguely imply what Kai said while conveniently leaving out the information so they can, again, pretend to have a point. And this is all discounting the fact that Kai addressed this situation and pointed out how his wording doesn't implicate him in any slanderous claims. So yes, they're complaining about an issue that has already been resolved and seemingly leaving out information that destroys their argument just so they can regurgitate it and push the narrative that Kai is just ignoring the specific situation.
Like you did when you mentioned that Just a Robot tried to end the drama earlier, yet you still make this video. Practice what you preach.
You are all incredibly bad faith actors. Holy Christ. Jar even tried to defend this segment in his follow-up video by saying that they did include context because Carmen gives her a phrasing of Kai's original statement that is, in essence, the same. Just dragged out more honestly. But even then, right after doing that, actually, Carmen does show Kai's original statement, which is the first time any of them do that, by clipping "by your own logic, you're just as bad as the people you're criticizing" to "you're just as bad as the people you're criticizing."
Saying that she's just as bad as the people she's talking about is language that gives off the mighty bad implication that she's one of them since she's just as bad.
You're still cutting context, you're just presenting it in your own rephrasing so that you can underhandedly look like you guys are the ones that came up with the idea that Toby's label of P-word on herself is the one that would be a result of her own rhetoric. Now, as someone who's thoroughly explained the situation and the phrases within, I'm going to tell you how you could rephrase this better. Don't phrase it at all because this point is stupid and should have never made it into the video.
Even though it is a part of the drama and they're just trying to go over everything as much as they can.
Now, Toby's point was that people who draw porn of kids are pedos. But Todoroki isn't a kid. He's 16, old enough to drive.
Evolution was a mistake.
You didn't even make an argument. Also, Jar mentioned this multiple times already. He said that while 16 isn't a kid, it is a minor. So whatever point you were trying to imply is full of shit. Also, I'm just gonna say this right here. A good chunk of this drama wouldn't exist if dumb Westerners and normies understood that Todoroki is a fucking drawing and not a real minor.
The age of consent in most states is 16.
Age of consent has no place in this conversation.
I agree, because drawings don't need an age of consent because they're not real people.
CP, which is the thing Toby was talking about, completely revolves around the legal age of adulthood. This is why it's important to display the argument as is, or else make sure that you're completely filling your audience in on all the necessary information. Because while Jar gets it right in saying that Toby is talking about children in sexual situations, he forgets to mention that Toby specifically refers to it as CP. The whole point of our video was to call it as it is, so the fact that Jar just somehow completely leaves that part out is kind of crazy to me. He even tries to clear up the whole thing about Toby not technically drawing porn, but again, he fails to mention that it being called porn is a result of Toby's own logic and wording. Jar has been criticized a lot for this point, and his comeback seems to be some bizarro mental gymnastics to say that Toby was actually talking about lollies and shotas, so her art of Todoroki and Usagi don't actually fall into CP, even by her own logic, which... What? I'm sorry, where were lollies and shotas brought up?
I mean, that's what it's called mainly, lolly or shotacon. Either way, this argument shouldn't even be a thing for Vabzusen or Jar because it's a fucking drawing.
Provide evidence, maybe? The fact that you, as a grown adult, are failing to recognize the irrelevance of age of consent in this argument that Toby is asserting, and then grasping at straws to try and defend yourself even more, is concerning. I'm not going to throw any labels on you, but goddamn, you need to be so much more careful when talking about this stuff and know what you're saying.
You too, because of you and Luke's video, people started calling Jar a pedophile.
Like, immediately. The thing that really bites him here is, you know that situation involving Spoctor that they mentioned at the beginning of this video? Yeah, the tides all turned in Spoctor's favor because of a video that my friend B made about it, calling out a lot of the lies and issues with the allegations against Spoctor that he was a predator. You may have heard of her channel, it's called Ponder Sprocket.
You're friends with Ponder Sprocket? Jeez, what is it with you and befriending my favorite YouTubers? First Chaos, now Ponder Sprocket? Jeez.
The reason why this bites so much is that B goes into the subject and talks about how even those over the age of consent but under the legal age of adulthood cannot take or send pornographic photos of themselves, or else they can be legally prosecuted for the creation and distribution of CP. So did you actually learn from that video, or is this another case of important information falling on deaf ears?
He addresses it in his second Toby video.
Now, there's of course a lot of debate to be had when it comes to fictional characters and what is and is not appropriate with aging them up and stuff like that. Legally and logistically, there's a lot of complexities and nuances to it. We're not going to be talking about them here.
You may not talk about it, but I did, in my video on Brittany Venti. Granted, the main topic wasn't lolly, it was Gargura, but it was mentioned a lot in there.
Sorry, I can only devote so much energy to serious topics in a video.
I mean, me too.
Pedophilia bad, that's all.
Also, she did it one time. Just once. Jesus Christ, get over yourselves. You're acting like she's Shadman and she does this all the time. No, she did it one time. She made a mistake, and that's it. Get over yourselves.
Oh, so when Toby does something wrong, it's a mistake, and she only did it one time. But when Omnia and Kai make a lapse in their judgment about someone subtweeting them and Omnia makes a toxic threat in her video, both of which have been rectified and apologized for, you three still decide to dig it out of the dirt and point fingers about how it shows a bigger problem with them? Yeah, sure. Okay, that's also ignoring the fact that Toby actually did it twice, but it seems like when people inform you of that fact, your only concern was to mention that Usagi was also 16, and after watching Kai's video where Omnia goes over your comment reply to her, still brush it off in the same manner that you did here.
You keep bringing up the point of her drawing hentai of Usagi, yet you have no proof other than the screenshot alone. But CarmenRider, it's porn, and porn isn't allowed on YouTube. Yeah, and she could have easily censored the image, but still show it. Either way, she doesn't have proof.
Great. From here on, they talk about how Omnia shouldn't be upset over being questioned when she wasn't questioned, she was accused of cutting context. There's kind of a difference between asking someone, did you cut something important from this conversation, and you lied and cut important stuff from this conversation. Now, there's a debate to be had on whether you should rely on the person making accusations to provide evidence of a claim.
Yes! Yes, you should! Okay, Vabzusen, from what I heard, you publicly said that you like having sex with minors. Do I have proof to give? No. See how that doesn't work? You need evidence to prove your accusation correct.
But at the same time, if you're in a position where you can disprove a public claim and stop it from growing when you know it's false, then I see no reason why you shouldn't be allowed to just dispel the accusation.
Tell that to Johnny Depp and Pro Jared. Even after they debunked the claims against them, they still suffered. False accusations are fucking not okay, and as a result, you need evidence. It's innocent till proven guilty, not guilty until proven innocent.
After that, Carmen decides to bring up the legal aspects of leaking DMs on Twitter, which, oh my god, I don't care, it's Twitter DMs.
So we're just gonna not respect people's privacy. Alright.
If y'all really want to complain about the legalities of leaking DMs that don't endanger her well-being or slander her name, then you can take Omnia and Kai to court and waste all of your money on lawyers and court fees on a case that will be dismissed and dissolved.
They weren't threatening to take her to court, they were just pointing out the legality of it.
We're skipping.
And seeing as how you reacted to people saying they were going to do a video on you, let us be completely blunt. You have shot your credibility!
Allow me to explain. By leaking the private conversation, any other chance you have to talk to someone you're going to be criticizing will be met with nothing but the cold shoulder. Because people won't be able to trust you since you're willing to leak these kinds of situations.
That has nothing to do with Omnia's credibility as a commentator.
It kind of does, because you'll seem untrustworthy. I mean, just look at what happened when John Swan was exposed as a liar.
Her credibility would be called into question if her claims on the evidence she put forth could be considered illegitimate or non-factual, or if she didn't put forth any evidence at all, neither of which are applicable here.
It doesn't matter. They were saying that people aren't going to want to talk to her as they might be scared that their DMs are going to be leaked.
You guys are arguing about the morality of the situation, which isn't credibility, that's integrity, which is subjective and changes from person to person.
Yes, but it often relies on opinion of the general public.
Learn what words mean. From here on, they start talking about another incident where Omnia said some pretty toxic stuff in her video that she cut out and apologized for. So yes, they're again pulling what they did earlier and trying to villainize their target for something they already recognized as a severe lapse in judgment and apologized for.
Like you did with this video.
Except it's even worse this time, since they don't even mention Omnia's apology. They just talk about how she deleted it and how shady it is of her to do so, and then end off by once again trying to push the narrative that this is indicative of Omnia's character in a wider sense, which it isn't. It's another instance of you guys only being able to rely on month-old rectified incidents in order to push a narrative.
Just like this video. Hence why you went on and on about race earlier.
Their argument literally just boils down to, we know you got rid of this part, but you still acted in that way, so checkmate.
Practice what you preach.
Again, to be fair, this was cut from her response from Toby, but the fact that this was put in the final product anyway is kind of disgusting, and makes it seem like you can't take criticism either.
Please, if you guys actually had a leg to stand on, you would be able to find instances of Omnia acting in this way to prove that it's a consistent behavior of hers that persists to this day. Carmen and Fuchsia leave, thank God, and Jar decides that it's his time to get on the soapbox.
Okay, now we get to my ending thoughts and why I jumped in on this whole thing. I didn't want to at first. This drama wasn't really my cup of tea. I was going to let Harsh Opinions, Nani, and whoever else wanted to jump on this bandwagon handle it. But when Kai made his response to Harsh, the amount of dislikes and the amount of hate comments she got was just not normal.
This isn't an argument. You're literally just whining that people voice disagreements in the comments and utilized YouTube's rating system to do that as well.
I mean, if people are allowed to give constructive criticism in the comments and ratings, then others are allowed to give constructive criticism as well.
You have provided no evidence of hate comments unless you genuinely believe that people voicing that they don't believe black people should be told when they should and shouldn't speak on race issues to be hate. Which, if that's the case, then wow, I think that says a lot about you.
I'm talking about Kai in this video right now. I'm several times his size.
Your cock is small. Be silent, male.
You're not funny.
He continues complaining about people he likes getting ratioed and imaginary hate comments for a bit.
Now, maybe Harsh's and Nani's videos were terrible, but I watched them both. They were just as calm and collective as they normally are.
So what, demeanor dictates the validity of people's arguments now?
Not entirely. But it's important to try to stay composed while doing a video.
No, that's not how that works. It can affect how well your audience takes in the information and responds, but it doesn't dictate the factual aspects of an argument. God, this video reads so 2017 to me. Is that the last time you were updated, Jar?
I just don't understand why so much backlash. A lot of the comments on both Nani and Harsh's video are on the lines of, I used to be a fan of you, but you just disappointed me. This is your worst video yet. Or, I'm new to this whole situation. I don't know what's going on, but to me you seem a little bit biased in Toby's favor. Why didn't you talk about her?
Wow, so people are voicing their distaste and discontent with the content provided.
True, but Jar didn't understand that why people are being ratioed for being right.
What's the problem, Jar? I thought you weren't afraid of criticism, but I'm not sure I can believe that when you spend this much time talking about how terrible it is that the people you like are being criticized.
He doesn't have an issue with criticism, but at least make it good criticism.
I've been on the internet for a very long time, and these comments seem majorly sus. It could be that the Toby haters are really rabid, or Kai and Omnia have a little Discord group and they're getting a whole bunch of people to do a coordinated trolling attempt. But that seems like too much of a conspiracy for my taste.
You know, it's funny that Jar would even bring up the idea of a creator using their platform to try and direct a bunch of people around in a way that benefits them, because Manga Kamen does that exact thing. Like my Reddit post so I can express dissenting voices and feel validated, he says, tagging everyone in his Discord server of over 700 people.
According to the screenshot he showed, he was saying to upvote the post. That's not harassment. That's literally the opposite of harassment. I mean, that's what Josh the Josher did with my video on Just a Robot.
So, bringing this up as an offhand comment about a conspiracy surrounding people that you're criticizing, try having one of your collab partners being the only person participating in that tactic. Yikes.
Maybe I should have played that Simmy and Jimmy clip a bit later.
Luckily, if you guys seen my Mr. Enter video, you guys would know I have a way of knowing who's commented on my videos before. So if I get a bunch of comments on this video from people saying, I used to be a fan of you, but you disappointed me, I can check if they commented on any of my videos before this one.
God, imagine being this insecure over criticism of your content.
He doesn't mind criticism. He's just trying to see if people are lying or not.
You know, for a guy who tried to not so gently push the narrative that Omnia is afraid of criticism through dishonest methods, you're not exactly doing yourself any favors by threatening to vibe check your own audience if they dare voice disappointment in your content.
Even though in the screenshot you showed, he was pointing out that the person isn't even a fan of Jar.
Like, God, you're such a snowflake.
The pot calling the kettle black.
Jar continues to rage over a comment expressing sympathy for Omnia and Kai as they feel that a community of people ganged up on the two, which Jar tries to disprove, you know, in the video that he banded together with 3 other people to make several bad faith arguments. I hate it. Oh, and he continues to cite like to dislike ratios because of course he does.
Because that's how people tell how good or bad a video did.
I don't really care about this Toby situation, and I want this to be my first and last video about it. But if I have to make a part 2, then I will.
I'm quaking, Jar, honey. Truly. And like, oh God, what the hell am I looking at? Okay, yeah, we're done. Next section, please.
What? It's just his patron screen. What's there to be bothered about? And you call Jar the snowflake. Okay, I see how it is.
We'll be back after these messages.
Do I really have to do this part?
Now, I basically covered all of my points in the commentary section of this video, but let's talk a bit about the aftermath of Jar's video. So basically, Kai made a video in response, Prismmake Luke made a video in response, and then Spockdro made a video about the whole thing and really tried to just get everyone to chill the hell out and stop being super reactionary with the situation, which, yeah, I can't really disagree. However, something funny that Spockdro does to try and get this message across is show clips of people involved talking about how they're so tired of the situation, but 2 of the people that he shows are Jar and Manga Common, which is just so amazing.
I mean, Just a Robot is doing what you and Luke asked of him, to end the drama. So why are you criticizing him over doing what you asked?
Like, I don't really care if you revived the drama intentionally or not. I don't really think it's your place as the people who did so to then complain about how you're tired of it still going on. Like, wow, I'm so sympathetic to your guys' situation. You guys just kind of need to sit down and take your talking to at that point. So anyways, after all that, Jar made a follow-up video apologizing for some stuff, but again, there were some issues that I tried to address when I could. Anyways, in the video, Jar talks about how the revelation of the fact that Toby used a video about her dead dog to call some guy a P-word for problematic art of minor characters in sexual situations changed his perspective on everything, which I just kind of don't understand.
Actually, Spockdro had talked to Jar behind the scenes about it.
I'm sorry, but how is mentioning that Toby was stupid in her actions again supposed to change much about your viewpoint? Like, that doesn't really change anything in my opinion. Jar also includes the video he was going to post responding to Prismmate Luke's video, and honestly, I can concede with some of Jar's points. I don't think Luke is necessarily that great at supplying substantial evidence of his claims, and his videos honestly just feel very surface level in regards to the input that he provides.
Which is ironic given that Luke endorses this video. Maybe Luke has a humiliation fetish, I don't know.
But, you know, digestible content and whatever. Now, one of the big reasons why Jar and others felt so compelled to cover the situation is supposedly the large amount of people claiming that those opposed to Omnia and Kai in any way are racist. And I just have to say one thing to my babies about that. Maybe don't. I understand the urge to label and kick someone out who you perceive as the bad people, but at the same time, I'd rather have a bunch of white allies than a bunch of white enemies, if you get my drift. In order to do that, we need to have good optics, and I'm sorry, but calling every white person who is maybe ignorant to the stuff they're saying a full-on racist is not good optics, and making a reputation for us as the people who purity test and shun anyone who fails the vibe check their first run through is even worse optics. Yes, it's incredibly irresponsible for people with large platforms to make such poorly researched and poorly constructed videos on a matter involving race and mishandling that subject.
Irony.
But don't ruin any chance we have of possibly pulling them over and watching them grow into strong allies. We, as progressives, need to remember that the right, hate groups, fascists, bigots, open up their arms wide to welcome in and educate others with their race realism and pseudoscience and gender-critical ideologies.
I mean, I understand fascists, racists, and supremacists are bad, but right wings? I mean, yeah, some right wings are racist, but not all of them are.
So, I think it's time we step up our game. From the people that have talked about this, it really sounds like this was a whole community issue, which is where I get to be all smug about this as someone who specifically distanced myself from basically all online communities, because I've seen the stuff that happens when you're a part of them and even felt the brunt of the crazy myself. I have a whole video planned talking about my less than positive experiences and being associated with online communities. This channel is basically just going to be me complaining about my experiences on the internet over the past few years, and honestly, love that for me. Oh yeah, and everyone who kept trying to get Pondersprocket involved in this video, kindly stop trying to get my friend involved in internet dramas. She made a whole video talking about how the pressure for her to get involved in every case that comes her way has basically destroyed her mentally. So again, you can stop. My friend would like her rest, thank you. So basically that's everything I had to say. This video was so long. I don't know if this is gonna cause any spat on social media, so follow me on Twitter.
Alright, we're done here. Final thoughts. Vab, so far, this is only your 10th video on your channel, so it's clear that you're new to this, unlike Luke. So, I'm gonna give you the benefit of the doubt. Just this once. Don't give me a reason to come back here. And stop listening to Luke and Nani. I hope you'll learn from this. And to anyone still watching, goodbye.
So am I. So am I. So am I.